name's Marie Coneys, and I'm a software engineer at Slalom Build.
Hi everyone, my name's Catherine Wilkes. I'm a senior director at Slalom in Manchester.
Today we wanted to talk to you about a couple of topics that we really feel resonated with the theme, Believe You Can. So the first one we'd like to talk about is our own career journeys so far, up until this point. The second would be some of the challenges that we've faced as women in tech, and the third being ways you can progress your career in tech. For myself, I've got this top kind of wiggly line for how I've ended up here where I am today. As you can probably tell by my accent, I'm not from here. I'm originally from New York. I studied art history, and whilst I was in university, I was hired as kind of like a brunch cover employee 1 day a week for a boutique as the first employee that the owner had kind of taken on. She found an amazing space. We relocated, rebranded, and eventually opened 6 stores across New York. So ranging from fashion, homeware, and even a museum store, which really was great for me, having studied art history. So once I graduated, I went straight into a master's degree in art history again. I found my first job in the arts at a university art gallery. I became an adjunct lecturer teaching undergraduate art history. And I was lucky to work for an archive and studio for an amazing photographer, Bruce Davidson. And also, somewhere in there, I met my husband, who is from Yorkshire. And things started to plateau in my career. I felt like the only way up was if somebody above me was to leave, which was not really a great feeling. I didn't want to feel in competition with the people who had trained me and made me so confident in that work. But at the same time, I really wanted to carry on working on those exhibitions, publications, and artists that I'd worked with. So I decided to take the leap and move to Manchester, which is where the big spiral is. So I moved here basically with no job, and we hadn't really figured out a place to live, but just knew we wanted to live here together. I was able to find a job with a retail company just about 4 months before lockdown. So I finally found my footing, got through the Christmas mad rush, got to know my staff a lot better, and then went into furlough mode. So during that time, I had been speaking with somebody who became a bit of a mentor to me about potentially retraining as a UX designer, because what I had loved in the arts so much was audience development and taking people on kind of a journey. So I did that, and unfortunately, my store location closed, so I was offered work as a junior web developer for the company, so I just dodged redundancy. And about 6 months ago now, I joined Slalom Build through the Build Academy, which gives early career people and recent graduates the opportunity to work on client engagements and get their footing working on agile teams. Yeah.
Thanks, Marie. So my career path is probably a little bit more traditional than Marie's. I did a PhD in theoretical particle physics, and then when I came out of my PhD, I really struggled to get a job, and I just applied to so many jobs, and eventually somebody offered me one. So I'd love to say that, I had a great path, but it was basically the only thing I could get. And that was to be a data consultant within defense. So I did that for 3 years, and it was fantastic. I was working for a medium-sized firm, so I got lots of experience, lots of autonomy, worked on some really, really interesting projects. For example, I worked with the British Army, working out what skills they needed, in what place and when, which was just fantastic. And in my personal life, I had a boyfriend, and he was wanting me to move to Manchester. I was wanting him to move to London. And in the end, he won out. So I moved to Manchester. So I started working for PwC in Manchester. And that was probably the first dip, I'd say, I had in my career, because I really lost my confidence a bit when I joined PwC. I was working on a project. I felt I really didn't know what I was doing. And I think my boyfriend, who, by the way, is now my husband, so that bit worked out fine. I think he was thinking, oh gosh, she's moved here for me and now she's having a tough time. But I got through it, and I was with PwC for 8 years in total. A few ups and downs, but in general, an upwards trend, until I was leading the data team across the north for PwC. And then I had a huge dip in my career that really impacted me. And that was when I failed my director panel 2 years in a row. And I thought, I don't know what I'm going to do. I felt the rug had completely been pulled from under me because I had this clear path, this clear direction, and then, it was not going to happen. And I was at the photocopier, because this was a few years ago, at the photocopier one day, and I saw a poster that said that they were organising a trip to Everest Base Camp. So I went home to my husband, and I was like, I'm going to go to Everest. And he's like, okay, right, this is extreme, fine. So off I went for a month to Everest Base Camp, and it was just a life-changing experience for me. And I realised, actually, for me personally, that there was a lot more than just me at work, because everything I'd been doing up until that point was channeling into my career progression. So when I got back from Everest Base Camp, I decided two things. One was that I was going to have a baby, and then the second was that I was going to leave PwC. So did both of those things. So the first little boy there was my little boy. He's now 3.5 years old. And I got a job with Slalom in Manchester. They were opening an office in Manchester, asked me to lead the data practice there, which was a brilliant decision for me. And then 2.5 years later, had our little girl. So I've had 2 maternity leaves out and managed to successfully return to my career after both of those. And actually, I have found that my career has been much, much better after having children. I've just got a much better focus. I'm able to juggle things more, and I've got more self-confidence as well. So that's my career journey to date. Over to you, Marie, for some of the challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that you mentioned that really sticks out to me is sticking with your values and having that drive your career growth. So for me as well, one of the Slalom core values that hits home is take ownership and get it done. So when I moved here and was really struggling to find work in my field and just kind of beating my head against a wall, applying for all of these jobs, not hearing back, I just decided, what do I know how to do? What am I happy doing? And how do I chase that a bit? And now that I'm in a technical role, one of the challenges I've found specifically for that is being able to let my guard down and ask for help. So I remember the first ticket that I picked up on my own in my current project. I was kind of falling behind, not giving accurate reports at stand-up, and not knowing who to ask or what to say. So I think that was a real trial by fire for me, because all I had was supportive teammates surrounding me, saying, how can we support you? And so learning to say, I don't know. And then I guess the second major challenge, of course, is switching careers so often. So finding the confidence to own that decision and say, this wasn't working for me. I'd rather, have a happy life outside of work and make those sacrifices and take it on the chin, sort of, and just keep going, figure out what works.
Yeah, so I think I've had similar challenges. Probably the 2 main challenges I've had is, firstly, doubting my own ability and what value I'm adding into the process. And then secondly, in just being the only female in a room and feeling that it was difficult to get my voice heard. And then that sent me into a spiral of questioning whether I was saying anything meaningful that should be heard. And even from a practical point of view, I remember I was out once with lots of senior men, and they were all, 5'10", 6 foot or whatever, talking. And I'm down here at 5'2", and not being in that conversation. So those are definitely some of the challenges that I've had.
Yeah. And in terms of how I've gone about progressing my career, I've realized that, as probably more introverted side, I need to just kind of push through that and drive connection at work and find out what kind of workplace do I want to be in. I'm actually very privileged, I would say right now, because I'm not managing anybody for the first time in 10 years, so I can focus on what I want out of work and do things like join the culture committee and get to know people around me and really connect with them and figure out how to make it work for everybody.
Yeah, so for me, in terms of progressing a career in tech, what I've found helpful, firstly, is to find a community that uplifts you and where you feel you belong and that can support you. So I've got some fantastic sort of women in tech communities within Manchester. There's so many around, and I found that really helpful to just give that external lens and to give me a confidence boost when I felt I needed it. And the second thing, more of a practical tip, is just to redo your CV every Christmas, even if you're not job hunting. It's really, really good practice to do that at the end of every year, to remind yourself of the great stuff that you've accomplished in the year. And then if you are at a point in time looking for a new job, it's much, much easier to then remind yourself of what you can offer and therefore what you should be looking for as well.
I think that's just about everything for us, but thank you so much for having us. It's a real honor to be among so many amazing speakers today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.